อต้อนรับเข้าสู่สุทธิชัย Podcast ณ บัดนี้สนับสนุนโดย BitCup นึกถึง Bitcoin คิดถึง BitCup บริษัทกาแฟดำจำกัดโครงการ Forestiers ของประเทศไทยเราขณะนี้เป็นที่รู้จักกันค่อนข้างกว้างขวางมากยิ่งขึ้นแล้วนะครับและจะมีการเปิดตัวอย่างทางการในเร็วๆนี้ที่ผมสนใจโครงการนี้เพราะว่ามีการนำเอาผู้เชี่ยวชาญด้านต่างๆจากนานาชาติที่มีระดับมาตรฐานสากลและต้องการให้เห็นว่าคนไทยเราสามารถทำโครงการอย่างนี้ในระดับโลกได้จริงๆหนึ่งในพันธมิตรที่มาช่วยงานวางแผนก็คือ Foster and Partner ซึ่งมาดูแลในฐานะเป็นที่ปรึกษาด้านออกแบบ Master Plan ของโครงการ Forestiers คุณโทบี้บลันต์เป็นผู้บริหารระดับสูงของ Foster and Partner ซึ่งเริ่มต้นทำงานกับ Foster and Partner ในปี 2538 ก้าวขึ้นมาเป็นพาร์ทเนอร์ในปี 2549 คุณโทบี้ใช้เวลา 5 ปีอยู่กับสำนักงานที่กรุงเบอร์ลิน สิงคโปร์และมาเลเซียแสดงว่ามีประสบการณ์ทางด้านเอเชียพอสมควรทำงานกับทีมต่างๆอย่างใกล้ชิดในสถานที่ทำโครงการต่างๆมากมายหลายด้านเช่นตึกไรฟ์ซักที่กรุงเบอร์ลินตึกนี้ถ้าใครไปเบอร์ลินจะต้องเห็นนะครับโดดเด่นอยู่กลางเบอร์ลินทีเดียวทำโครงการวิทยาเขตของมหาวิทยาลัยพิโตรนัสที่มาเลเซียเมื่อเร็วๆนี้และก็เข้าไปร่วมทีมโครงการออกแบบก่อสร้างในตะวันออกกลางด้วยเช่นโครงการ The Index ที่ดูไบพิพิธภัณฑ์ Zayed National Museum เช่นกันดังนั้นพอผมได้ยินว่าคุณโทบี้บลันต์ได้มาร่วมโครงการ Forestiers จึงอยากจะซักถามให้รู้ว่าเขามองยังไงเพราะว่าโครงการ Forestiers นั้นก็ย่อมมีความแตกต่างไปจากโครงการต่างๆที่เขาเคยทำมาหลายด้าน Hi Toby Hi you are in London right now
That's right
and we can talk on online discussions because probably we will have to wait a while before COVID-19 sort of dies down a little bit. How is it in London?
It's getting a lot better. I think we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel, which is always a positive sign.
Good. And when can I expect you in Bangkok?
As soon as I'm able to travel. It's been over a year now since I've been to see the project, so it's really I'm really itching to come back and see what's happening.
That's right. The last time we met in Bangkok, that was a few years ago, and that was the beginning of the idea of Forestiers. And I remember you telling me that you are very excited about working as the consultant to draw up the master plan for Forestiers. What has been the progress so far?
Well, the fantastic thing is, having seen the master plan that we completed, now actually having seen the actual physical manifestation of the architecture, the buildings are actually coming out of the ground. We've completed the first building, the Forest Centre. That's been completed and is open. People are visiting it.
Yes.
And there are a number of other of the sort of plots within the overall master plan where buildings are coming out of the ground and we're starting to see the shape of those buildings. So for any architect, I think that's the most exciting moment, going from a blank piece of paper to actually seeing things being built.
Yeah, you can really touch it now. You can really feel it now, right? Before you just saw it on paper. Now you can see your dream or the owners of Forestiers, coming true. First, tell us a little bit about Foster and Partner and your role in it.
So, we're obviously a well-known architectural practice, and we try and approach all of our projects really with a very sort of strong, sustainable agenda. And I think we've managed to do that throughout all of our clients and all of our projects globally. And I think one of the things that attracted us to this project, and in particular, I met Kun B and the team from MQDC a number of years ago.
Yes.
And I think what was always clear from their approach to any project was that they really wanted to think about the world and sustainability. When I talk about sustainability, I don't just mean green energy or anything like that. It was a holistic sort of approach to sustainability and community. And I think something that Kunbi always talked about very early on was this whole sense of community and reconnection. She always talked about reconnecting people.
Connecting.
And I remember conversations about how Bangkok, and I love Bangkok. I think it's a fascinating city and really diverse city, but how modern Bangkok had sort of lost touch, if you like, with the generations, with the family.
Yeah.
Modern living had kind of separated people, the older generation from the younger generation, and it was more and more difficult for people to sort of have that family bond. And so I think the aspiration from the project from day one was to find a way in which we could provide a solution to bring those family bonds back together. And that really was one of the genesis of the thinking behind the Forestiers project. And the second key link, if you like, was the reconnection of people back to nature. Yeah. Again, I think, particularly in Asia, and as you said in your introduction, I've got a lot of experience of having worked and lived in Asia, and I love the place, and I love the climate, and I love the nature there. And I think that the modern city sort of pushes the nature away, and the idea to sort of bring it back in some way to allow people to reconnect with nature was really also one of the key thinking ideas behind the master plan. So bringing those two things together was really what we were able to do.
How did Foster and Partner get involved in the first place? Who met whom first? Who approached whom first? How did it get?
Well, the story actually is I have a colleague who is a Thai national, and he's been working with us in London for many years. 10 years, I think he was working, Kun Sun Pon, and he was very keen to sort of go into Thailand and see whether we could find some work and some projects there, because he was interested in doing something for his own country.
Yeah.
Because I'd worked in the region, I was also interested in going with him. So we actually flew to Bangkok, and through the British Council in Bangkok, we organised a number of meetings with potential clients in Thailand. And Kunbi was one of those people we met during that week of intense meetings. Yeah. And I think at that point, she was very kind. She invited us to dinner that evening. And I think that really sparked a conversation between us about our approach to architecture and thinking, and her very interesting approach. And I think there was a lot of synergy between the two of us in terms of bringing the architecture from Foster's to Thailand, and really the opportunity she then opened doors for us to work with her and collaborate on a number of projects.
When you first heard Kunbi's idea, plan, what was your first reaction? This is too big. This is too ambitious. This is not possible, right?
We never say that. We always go straight in and hope for the best. No, I think yes, it was certainly very ambitious, but you can tell sometimes from meeting somebody and talking to somebody whether they're serious. And she was very, very serious. You could tell that she was very clear she wanted to do this for her country.
Did you feel the passion?
That's right. Yeah.
She's not just the property developer. She has a passion. She wants to create something really unique, right?
That's correct. And I couldn't say no to her. So, I think that was really where it all started. And I think, now we're a number of years along the process. I think that relationship has developed, and I think we have a good relationship. And I think that she's pleased with the way in which things are moving, and the sort of delivery of those buildings, how it's all turning out.
Why do you think couldn't be decided to partner with Foster and Partner?
I guess you'll have to ask her that question. I'm hoping.
I ask you to guess, to try to assess her assessment.
Yeah, well, I think through the years and the conversations we've had, I think she's always said to me what she likes about us is our rigorous approach to the process, the way in which we think through, and the way we sort of very carefully consider the options and study things. We don't just jump to a conclusion and get on with it. We look at a number of different options. We try different things out. We create models of things. We engage very closely with our clients. We ask questions. We expect to be questioned. And I think one of the things she's always very good at is questioning us and pushing back on some of the things that we present to her. And I think from my understanding, that was really what she enjoys, that kind of creative process. And I think hopefully that was something we were able to give her as well, that interaction.
You have had experience in Asia, in Singapore, Malaysia, and the Middle East. What is the big difference between Forestiers and the other projects that you have had experience with?
Well, I think all projects are different and all clients are different, and we tackle every project very differently. I think what we try to do is take on a project and try and make sure that it belongs to the place that it's in. So you can't really compare necessarily projects, and we certainly don't have a sort of style that we apply to any across the board. We always look at an individual project and develop that. As I say, I think there are the common thread, I suppose, is more the intellectual thinking that goes on to that, the approach that certainly we take in terms of the climate, the environmental aspects, and having been in Asia and understood a little bit about the tropical climate, I think that's a really interesting area of architecture, tropical architecture, and how in history the traditional built form, and we've spent a bit of time studying Thai traditional architecture to understand how people responded to the climate, the rain, the sun, the temperature, and could we learn from those lessons, those traditional architectural lessons? Could we learn from that and reinterpret that and apply some of those ideas to the modern architecture that we are producing? So I think that's one of the key things, because we really wanted to make this project, and we used the word Thainess. We really wanted to bring in a sense of Thainess to everything we did.
You mentioned that this is a project that involves many generations of people, the young, the elderly, the working people, the little kids. Is that a big challenge for you? Because this is where all the generations come to live and enjoy life together.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting that, and very unusual, and certainly nothing we've done before, where you have a project that has the entire life cycle within it. So you have you have a variety of different living accommodations, from small apartments for young people to smaller family units. To the larger sort of bigger extended family units, the combination of villas and clusters to allow different generations to live close to one another. But not only that, then there was the introduction of the retirement, the guided protected environment component of the master plan, and also the medical facilities that sit slightly outside the piece we were doing. But on the top edge of the site, adjacent to the road, is a hospital facility. So that whole thing from the birth of the children from the families having the babies, right the way through to the older people eventually moving into retirement, and of course for those who are unfortunate enough to suffer from ailments, they could be very well looked after and cared for. And with the immediate medical facilities. So, that entire sort of circle is really unusual and not something many, as you say, developers really consider. And I think that for us was fascinating to be part of that story. So yes, challenging, but also fascinating, and the diversity of the different products that we were able to create, and the feeling of wellness, making sure that the quality of life in Forestiers is exceptional. That was really challenging, but I think doable.
Yeah, but it's not always that a consulting firm on master plan gets that kind of opportunity to really do something that is out of the ordinary, and also if you could make it work, then it is one of its kind in the world, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's also interesting, we could never have foreseen the COVID-19 pandemic. But interestingly enough, the sort of products and the design that we're offering actually in some ways, is complementary to that opportunity if there is another pandemic.
Yeah.
The people living there could still have their family connections. They could still have protection. There's good air quality, all those sorts of things that actually would make this most interesting to people who are concerned and worried about what we're currently going through and the future and how that might address some of those concerns.
When you started planning the project, there was no COVID-19. Has COVID-19 changed significantly your original plan?
No, I don't think it's changed significantly. I think in many ways, what we've tried to do with all of our design work and architecture is really think about the health and the well-being and the quality of life for people. And actually, I think, I'm no expert, but certainly some of this sort of overcrowding and densities in cities that we see today, if there is something like this pandemic, I mean, the transmission of that happens very rapidly because of this. Because of this, and to sort of start to think about the quality of cities and how we improve cities has been at the forefront of our thinking for some time now. And this project is out of town, but in many ways it's a sort of test bed, if you like. And I think that was also some of the thinking to think about the future of living. And there is a mixture. It's not all just low rise. There are some high rise components in there.
Yes.
But cities becoming more and more lived in, more and more people are moving to cities. I think we do have to address how the quality of life can be improved within those cities, and that's something that certainly this pandemic has certainly woken a lot more people up to really thinking about how we move forward with this.
Right. สนับสนุนโดย Bit ครับนึกถึง Bitcoin คิดถึง Bit ครับ In a way, I think the pandemic helped. If it had happened later, meaning that you have already finished up your plan, then it would mean that you have to make a lot of amendments to it. But now that it happens right in the middle of the process, then you have enough time and enough imagination to change it and then to be able to prevent or to live with the next pandemic. Am I right?
Absolutely, and I think that all these things are sent to challenge us, and London wouldn't have had a sewer system if it had not been for the cholera epidemic. Yes. People have to adapt and change and learn from these things and make a better come up with a better solution. And I think all these things are sent to test us as humanity. And I think if we respond to it and learn from it, then yes, we can improve.
I understand you're also very much into technology. How much of sustainable material technology would you introduce into the project?
I think we always want to put in as much thinking and learning from technology, using technology to think about sustainability, whether that's through the mechanical systems, how the energy is sourced, how it's fed through into the buildings. We always think about providing natural ventilation, and if you think about traditional architecture, it was always naturally ventilated. These days we can control that much more using technology. We can open and close things automatically. We can have sensors. We want to monitor the air quality. People these days look on their phones, look on apps to make sure that it's safe to go outside. Thailand, Bangkok in particular, has pollution issues that it has to deal with. And so we want to use all these technologies that are out there, all these clever people who create these algorithms that enable us to live better. We want to link into that, and part of the Forestiers is, if you like, a smart master plan and enabling people to link into the wider master plan and connect with it in a way that benefits their lifestyle and adds to the quality of that and infrastructural technology as well, the use of electrical vehicles, how you might have a network of taxi systems, so there were lots of opportunity, lots of things we're talking about implementation and bringing technology to bear.
In your master plan for the forestiers, apart from the residential area, what other factors are you introducing for the residents to be able to enjoy sustainable living, quality of life?
Well, sure. The main thing was really the introduction of the forest. So the forest became, the significant piece of the master plan to the point where the forest area, land area, if you think about buying a huge piece of land and then putting aside, almost 60% of that to be a forested land and not develop it, again, was something that was kind of, we sort of took a step back because, again, most people wouldn't take that approach. But the idea to put aside this significant land area as a forest, as an amenity for people to use and benefit from. And as you say, not just the residents, but people from the immediate area, the communities around can also come in and can visit that forest and enjoy the links back to the forest. The building that's being completed, the forest centre, is actually an education facility. At the moment, it's being used as part of the sales team's offices, but soon, when the buildings are all finished, it will be converted into a science building, which will encourage people, kids and generations to come in and learn a little bit about the forest, understand how the forest develops, how it grows, particularly a sort of tropical forest that you find in Thailand, and educate people. And then they can go out and explore and see some of that in real when we see they walk into the forested areas and enjoy that. So really that was one of the key focuses, if you like, of amenities to improve the quality of those people's lives.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned the natural scenery, the forest, normally when you attack such a huge project, you want to make it a landmark. And the landmark means it has to be outstanding. It has to catch the eyes. But you have forest. So it's not possible that you have both the forest and then a big landmark right in the middle of Bangkok. How are you planning to handle that?
I don't think, I don't think necessarily. I mean, a lot of people talk about, as you say, landmarks and icon. That's something that many clients come to us and say, we want an icon. We want a landmark.
We want to be talked about. At the same time, we want to be able to be very much part of this scene of the landscape.
That's right.
So sometimes they contradict one another, right?
Correct. And I think, again, Kun B, I don't think had that sort of ego. I think she really wanted to do something that was special. And I think what will happen is people will realize that this is a landmark, not just because of its physical presence, but more because of the experience that one would get visiting the Forestiers project. So it's not about creating shapes and forms on a skyline. It's more about the spirit of the Forestiers project. And I think if we're successful in people being able to talk about it and say, have you been? Have you been there? It's just fantastic. It's beautiful. It's amazing. Then I think by that reason it will become a landmark. It'll become known. It'll become a place people want to see, want to go, want to live there. That for us, I think, is really interesting. It's a sort of non-icon, if you know what I mean.
Non-iconic icon. I like that word. Yes, it means that it is unique in itself. It doesn't have to try to boast about it. It will be recognized. It will be recognized because of its uniqueness.
Yes, absolutely.
Bangkok has many physical features that may be big challenges for you. It's flat and it's prone to flooding and other features. What are some of the weak points, or maybe not weak points, but some of the special features of Bangkok that require your special attention?
Well, I think it's interesting you talk about flooding. When we first came to the site, I think it was a shrimp farm.
Yeah.
Originally.
Yes.
And so it was actually essentially pretty much flooded the entire site. Mm-hmm. And so we had to be very conscious of that in the way in which we set the sort of levels for the buildings to sit on. So there was quite a lot of work done with the landscape team and engineers to make sure we created the right levels. The second thing then was really the how do we deal with the intense rainfall and the flooding, as you say, the potential for flooding. So one of the things you have to do is you can't just take the rainwater that comes onto your plot and just distribute it onto neighbours' property. You have to retain that water on site for a certain period of time and eventually let it slowly trickle out. There are a number of canals that run either side of us, so we can feed into those canals, but in a very controlled way. So working with the landscape architects, we wanted to really think about how we could use the variance in water levels as part of the process of the forest. So you can imagine in a tropical forest when there's heavy rain, you get streams, you get water bodies, you get a lot of movement of water in the forest. And when it's the dry months, that water dissipates and moves away, and you get a very different experience in the forest.
Yes.
So with the landscape architects, we wanted to create almost that sort of experience. So we formed ways in which we could hold water in sort of retention ponds and then allow these kind of streams to work in heavy rainfall. So you could almost walk into the forest when it's a tropical rainstorm and have that sense of, this is what it would be like during a tropical rainstorm in the forest itself. So very carefully thought about how we manage in particular water with that real understanding of the issues of flooding and control. So really spent a lot of time thinking about how we do that. That was important.
And you actually have to test it in sort of real time, meaning that you have to probably do some mock-up that you can have some real tropical rain, and then you know the complications that the rainwater can cause to this particular location, right?
Yes. And I think the good thing is that the buildings are coming out of the ground. Yeah. And so there are bits of the forest, and the team have already rescued some trees. They've actually gathered a number of trees together. And so we actually do have a small area where it's, if you like, a sort of nursery on the site.
Yes.
And so there is opportunity, as you say, to perhaps start to think about how we could test some of these ideas in on the site and make sure they're working.
I'm sure you do simulations as well when you plan this sort of project, right?
Yes and no. I mean, simulations to a certain extent, but as you say, there's nothing that beats actually testing it in the real scenario. Computer simulations tell you one thing, reality always tells you something slightly different.
But the best that you could do is to simulate the situation, because otherwise there's no other way. But then maybe your experience would help you from the other projects.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we worked closely. I mean, with a number of landscape architects to sort of pose these questions and see if we could do it. And there was always the thinking as well about nature and how we allow certain influx of nature into the forest as well. And of course, the water story is part of that. So as you say, that there are a number of things that as things progress, we will hopefully test or get the team to test.
You have to, of course, also work with the other partners in this project. How do you go about it? You draw up the master plan, you work with the architects, you work with the construction people, you work with a lot of other people. How do you collaborate with the rest of the team?
I think really that comes from experience. I mean, we've been working on major projects around the world for 50 years now, and collaboration is really, really important in part of the design process. Yeah. We always want to hear what the engineers have to say. We want to hear what the landscape guys say. We want to hear from everybody, and we want to think, challenge and think and push ideas, and really that helps everybody improve and grow and learn. So you're right, that sort of coordination is a challenge, and it's difficult, and all these big projects, you've got all these different parties, you've got all these different stakeholders. Clients these days have got a number of different stakeholders that all want to have a say. So yes, it's a complicated thing, and a project of this size, of course, is a huge challenge. But I think it's at the end of the day, it's down to relationships. It's building the relationships with the team, with the people. I always find it's always sad at the end of a project, when you've gone through a sort of 5-year process of building these relationships, working together.
Yeah.
And then the project finishes, and everyone sort of goes off in their own directions. That's that. But you do end up building up quite a lot of close relationships with the different people in these projects, and sometimes some of those people you do meet in the next project. But as I say, it's.
But once the project is completed, your role is still there, right? You will still be actively monitoring the progress.
Absolutely, and I think that's a really interesting point, because we often do what we call post-building analysis.
Yeah.
Where we go back and as you say, check and look at all those things we made bold statements about, and make sure they're working. I remember a number of years ago we did a very sustainable master plan called the Masdar Master Plan in Abu Dhabi. And that was really at the time challenging the idea of creating a fully sustainable city. And we went through a whole process of, again, collaboration with different engineering firms to come up with solutions and ideas, which we then invested in the first phase of that project. And once it was completed, we sent a team of our research team into the project, and spent a number of weeks and months analyzing all those things, checking the temperatures, looking at things, measuring things, and fortunately came away with all very positive responses to some of the decisions we've made. And of course, some were lessons that needed to be learned and weren't right. And we always admit not everything is right, and we have to learn from that. So as you say, going back in and maintaining that relationship with the project, and making sure that you've done the right things and learning from them is really vital, really important.
What is the percentage of the work so far completed?
I would say it's probably about 30%, 40%, but there's still a long way to go. But I think the other thing that's important is starting, and because all these projects need a sort of critical mass in order to gain the sort of interest in them, and the Forest Centre was one of the key buildings to sort of be built so that people could see it's really happening. And now there are a number of other buildings, as I say, which are under construction. So it takes time, but there is definitely momentum behind the project now, and people are very much aware of it. And I think the team at MQDC have done a great job of promoting it and making people aware of it, and I think they're seeing the success of that coming through now.
If someone who is considering whether to take up a part of Forestiers or not, whether to buy or not, then him or she meets you and says, "Hey, Toby, you are the consultant to designing the master plan of Forestiers. Tell me in very briefly why I should be part of this project. What is the greatest benefit of it?" Not as a salesman, but as a consultant, as someone who draws up the master plan. What would you tell them?
I would probably say to them, this really allows you to reconnect back to your tradition and back to your origins. It's particularly if it was a Thai national I was talking to, maybe to an international, something different, but certainly to a Thai national, I think it would be an opportunity to reconnect back to your tradition, the reinterpretation of traditional architecture being able to enjoy the quality of the nature. Those are the things I think I'd push, and also the fact that this will improve the quality of your life in terms of your health and well-being, which is very important for everybody. And I think the quality that we're trying to deliver as well, I think, is probably it's going to be a very high quality product. The buildings, the way they're built, and I think people investing in that would see that benefit. And it would be a unique opportunity, I think, for people. How long before another project like this comes along, I don't know.
Well, I can tell you from the Thai viewpoint that it's not easy to have someone with that kind of potentials and resources to be able to create anything close to Forestiers.
Yeah, I agree. And for us, it's been a real privilege to be involved in it. And I speak from the wider team because it's a big team that gets involved in these things over the years. And from our side, there's been a number of individuals that have invested a lot of their efforts and time into the project and love for the project. So we're all very immensely proud to have been, as you say, still part of this fantastic project.
Yes. I hope to see you soon in Bangkok so that we can inspect the site and the work in progress. I think it is very exciting. Yes.
No, absolutely. I'm very much, as I said, missing being able to see it happen.
Okay. Let's meet soon and further our discussion. Okay. Thank you very much, Toby Blunt. ขอบคุณมากครับ สวัสดีครับ Thank you.สนับสนุนโดย BitCup นึกถึง Bitcoin คิดถึง BitCup และบริษัทกาแฟดำจำกัดสามารถติดตามสุทธิชัย Podcast ได้ทุกช่องทางทั้งระบบ iOS และ Android สุทธิชัย Podcast anywhere anytime any device